Today's episode is all about the differences between a fight warm-up and a training session. Because after 45 plus fights, being all around the world, seeing so many people do their warm-ups, I've noticed, especially with the fighters on the undercards, big mistakes that they make, which could end up costing them the fight. So right after the intro, guys, 6 differences between fight warm-ups and training sessions that could make the difference between victory or defeat. I've talked about executing the perfect fight warm-up before on this channel, but today is just a little different. I want you to really understand the massive differences, the things that you really need to have distinction between. After you put 2 or 3 months in at the gym, you're doing everything one way, and then it's fight night and you go, oh shoot, I gotta change things up. I didn't know that. I want you guys to understand the intricacies of the warm-up and why we do certain things and why we don't do certain things. And the first point is gonna be less volume. You don't need your warm-up to be as long as your normal training session. How long are most people training? Well, I'd say on average, 90 minutes is a pretty standard class. And you might be surprised to hear that some people do fight warm-ups that last about 90 minutes. I've seen it. I've been in the locker rooms seeing guys hit pads, shadow box, spar, hit more pads, shadow box, spar, and it just goes on and on and on. And then they go out to fight and I'm going, man, no wonder they didn't come back with the victory. It's just far too much. You don't need to recreate a full training session. You don't need to be in there doing burpees and push-ups and sit-ups. It's not what the fight warm-up is about. So less volume. If you're used to training 90 minutes, think more like 30 or 40 for a full warm-up. That includes your stretch and everything else. Next, your fight warm-up needs to be super focused and very detail oriented. When we're at a training session in the gym, we can do everything. We can work on our clinch, we can work on our punches, our defense, our catching of kicks, we can do bag work, shadow boxing, speed bag, it doesn't really matter. But when you guys are getting ready for the fight, you want to be focused on everything in training camp condensed into what you really prep for this opponent. And if you're somebody who's new to the sport and you're fighting somebody you can't really research, you know, you're just showing up and you don't know really what your opponent's going to be bringing, well, still, you don't need to spend your training session focusing on what you're going to do for him, but you want your training session to be very detailed. Like, okay, we're really crisp on the defense. Let's work the defense. Now let's be very detail oriented on the offense. Like if you have a really good body hook, set up the body hook. Set up the body hook. Maybe you have low kicks that are going to be crashing in, so you practice setting those up. But you're focused on specifics instead of a wide variety of things which probably won't come into play in the fight. When you're at the gym, that's fine. You can try everything. You can experiment. But warm-ups before the fight, that's not time to experiment. That's time to focus in. Now moving on, we need longer breaks, much longer breaks than we take at the gym. Mostly because the heart rate, we don't want it to be up all the time and we don't want to get out to the fight and go, oh my gosh, my body had no time to rest. When we are at the gym, we can do, I'd say pretty standard, average is 3 minutes on, 1 minute off. 3 minutes on, 1 minute off. I usually maintain that for almost the whole 90 minutes I'm there. Obviously, when I go from maybe bag work to sparring or something like that, I have to put my headgear on, or maybe I have to take my headgear off. There's certain points when I'm transitioning from one activity to the other, which takes a little bit more time than 1 minute, but overall, I'm trying to minimize my break times. That's something I really focus on. But when it's fight night, I am trying to make sure that I go in, I do a 1 minute round, and maybe I take a 3 minute break. Then I go up and I do a 2 minute round. I might still take a 3 minute break. And it's not about sizzling down the muscles and getting in shape. That's what we're doing in the gym. Right now is about warming up the body, executing the focus techniques as we already mentioned, and really focusing on full recovery. After everything we do, if we don't do a full recovery, the body is just going to start to fade a little bit on us. It's okay in the gym when the body starts to fade, but we don't want that in the fight warm-up. So take those longer breaks. Next up is the mental aspect. The mental aspect is so different. When I go to the gym, sometimes I come in and I'm super focused and I almost treat it like it's fight night. But for the most part, I go in with sort of a happy demeanor. I'm there to enjoy it. If I don't enjoy my training session, I don't want to do it. I don't want to be in this sport. My training sessions, I'm doing over 100 of them compared to the one night of competition. So this should be fun. The fight night for me is not so fun. And in that change is basically the mental aspect of, okay, over here, I'm enjoying myself, I'm having fun, but when it's fight warm up, it's not that time for me. And it's important to recognize it. It's okay to change the mental aspect of training versus preparing for the fight. I'm not saying you need to get mean or angry or nasty or sit there and have somebody slap you in the face like, ah! It's just about being very focused, very determined, setting yourself up from the point you start doing your stretches till you do your light warm-up shadow boxing. Then you move into maybe some pad work, and every little step you take, every little minute that moves on, you're building your confidence. You're becoming more and more ready to go in and get that victory and do whatever you have to get that victory. The mental aspect is just, it's just something that would be unsustainable throughout an entire training camp. But you don't want to make the mistake of just thinking like, oh, this is just another training session. I'm just going to go and I'm just going to chill. Obviously, physically, we're not chilling when we're in training sessions at the gym, but mentally, yes, I believe we are to a certain extent, or at least in comparison to a fight warm-up. And recognize that as you move through the minutes, you're constantly getting more and more focused, more and more intense. Moving on, we are now talking about our heart rate. We don't want to achieve a maximum heart rate over and over and over and over, just like we will in the gym. At the gym, I could just be hitting the bag just as hard as I can and just constantly maxing it out. But in a fight warm-up, what we really want to do is only achieve that max heart rate a few times. That's what I think we should be focusing on. A few times where we really get it up to that max spot where we know if we get there in the fight, we've already touched it. You know, if we're trying to get up to something like 180 beats per minute, we touch it and then we come back down fairly quickly before the body starts to fatigue. But we want to make sure we do max it out so that when we get in the fight, it's not something that we haven't done for almost a week with the weight cut and the whole recovery period leading up to the weigh-ins. And definitely don't think you need to be having a max heart rate during shadow boxing warm-up and then during your pad work warm-up and then during your maybe sparring warm-up. It's just touch it a few times. Very different, very important to recognize that. And finally, the most important thing of this whole conversation is don't burn out before you get in the ring. In a training session, that's fine. You're in there, you want to burn out. You're constantly pushing yourself right from the beginning. When I start a training session and I shadow box, I'm trying to burn my shoulders down. I'm trying to punch like 200-300 times per round, an unsustainable amount for anything else other than shadow boxing. Then I move to something else, and again, I'm trying to burn myself out. But in our fight warm-up, it is not about burning ourselves out. It is about getting the mental focus, touching that max heart rate a couple of times so that when we get in the ring, we can perform 100%. We cannot perform 100% if we're constantly burning ourselves out in the fight warm-up. And rest assured, I have seen this so often where people are sort of keeled over in the locker room because they're just pushing too hard, and it's not going to help you in the fight. As I already said, it's okay to touch that max heart rate. Of course, it doesn't need to be like this is my warm-up. That's way too chill. Don't do that. But it can definitely have more intensity with the idea that we're not going to burn down the body. We're not going to fill it up with that lactic acid that you might have felt during a lot of fight camp. These differences, guys, as I said at the beginning of the episode, can be the difference between winning the fight and losing the fight. Being able to execute a perfect fight warm-up, although it is very difficult, and I don't even know if I've ever done it, but it is so important. You want to get as close to perfection as you can, so when you step in the ring, you are razor sharp. And if you can recognize the differences between the training sessions and the fight warm-up and really start implementing that into your pre-fight warm-up, you're going to be that much more dangerous, that much more effective, and that much more likely to get the victory on fight night. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you enjoyed the breakdown, and I hope you can start implementing these tips into your fight warm-up and recognize the distinction between the training and preparing for the fight. If you guys found the video helpful, if you think you're going to be able to use some of these tips in the future, please give the video a like. If you guys haven't already, join the channel, get subscribed for lots of content coming almost daily. And as always, guys, train hard, and I'll see you back here soon for another video.